I did mention that this might be something coming their way. They seem to be, turn to Chair Winston, who chairs that committee, they seem to be okay with it coming to them if that was something that TDC would like.
I see later in the package, we're changing the policy with respect to the number of committees and reducing them down.
Yeah, that would be dependent, obviously, on the actions on this item. But yes, if this item goes to marketing, then we would no longer really have a need for sports, because that's pretty much all they do is look at grants. And then cultural committee, all of those items have been pulled from the cultural committee, so there's really not much for them to meet on at this point.
I'm looking, you want us to look at the yellow right now, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at the yellow. Events receiving must have free entrance for attendees on page 41.
We got the first one first. We're still on page 40.
Okay. Oh, I thought he was, sorry.
There's different layers.
So, thinking out loud, the marketing committee, now many years on these boards, it's hard to get subcommittee members to attend committee meetings, and then, the workload as well, especially when you're doing the hard work that the cultural committee and the sports facility committee and the special grants committees do by having transparent and open agencies and reviewing a whole bunch of applications. So it is a sizable workload even for small grants.
Yeah, I would
So it could be the marketing committee, or since we're going to do it all in one, because of the workload, we may consider having another subcommittee of the TDC, or I would proffer that just the TDC put the time in and listen to all these grant proposals, and the TDC itself make the recommendations.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would also just comment, I think this process is going to be much more streamlined than what we've done previously. This will not require committee members to score applications like we've done in the past, because it's going to be based purely on attendance numbers and room night numbers. And the guidelines, once the TDC determines and the board approves it, the guidelines will dictate exactly how much the award will be. So if they get X number of attendees, they get Y amount of marketing. So it's going to be a pretty streamlined process, and I don't think it'll be much of a burden for whatever committee the TDC, wants to select. I don't think it'll be much of a problem for them.
The funds that qualify will be a reimbursement for marketing outside, so
it could be a reimbursement, or there's also an option for us to even do the marketing for them.
Right.
So, yeah. But that's not something that a committee really will even have to worry about. Once the decision's made and they're approved, and that comes to our office, and we'll manage all of that.
So what's your favorite one to?
Well, that's based on that, then the TDC should be able to handle it. Just a longer meeting would be my opinion.
Anybody else with opinion?
I concur with Tom, and I think a lot of these meetings have been
Okay.
streamlined, and if it's really one grant program across the board, I think
Pretty
it makes
easy.
sense to come here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then the next item is under page 41, under 5.0. The first input I need is this grant is for assisting events with out-of-county marketing. So again, we'll talk about that in a second, but it could either be us at the office doing the marketing for them, or reimbursement, and or defraying the cost of Brevard County facilities. So some of these events, particularly the sports events, use Brevard County facilities, and so this would allow for a reimbursement for that. Just checking, that's a check-in to see if the TDC is okay with those uses.
Please.
Having chaired the sports committee and worked with Rusty and others over the years, it's a big expense for these events, and the event organizers expect free facilities, generally speaking. So the ability for the TDC to have the flexibility, or staff to have the flexibility to reimburse and we're giving the money internally in Brevard County, that would make sense in order to be able to attract sports events where others are going to give the facilities for free.
Okay. The next decision point is on the minimum size of total attendees. We started at 10,000, which is kind of in the mid-range. There are events that are smaller, but if you look further down the page, we put a note that events with attendance of 3,000 to 10,000 would get promoted on our event page. They would get an event listing and get promoted through that, and we could do some more marketing for them that way. But for the events that are more significant in size, that tend to have more out-of-county visitors and have more marketing outside of the county, we were just starting at 10,000. Obviously, we'll put 10,001 or other. So the TDC certainly can weigh in on that and give us some feedback on that.
So this is where my questions come in. I mean, are we trying to limit this to only these few sort of mega events? Or are you really trying to do it for any event that draws a significant number? So in other words, you might say, okay, a performing arts group over the course of a season will draw 10,000 people. They can track that group and show that, and they should be able to market their whole season. Or I know today we have in front of the TDC attractions that charge admission for coming to museums, and if they over the year see X. So are you defining this as a single point event, or can we look so that if someone draws significant numbers over the year, that they look at it that way? And then if that's the case, then paid admission does fall into play, this other mark on 41. I don't know what the commission's intent was here, but I think if you've got a performing arts group that's drawing, let's pick on, just imagine one that's drawing significant numbers over the years with their season, is marketing their season out of community, they should be eligible for those marketing funds. And this, as it's currently structured, would only look for really sporting events and a couple of these big events that are less culturally focused and more sports focused. So I don't know what the intent of the commission is, but I wonder if they want to open the door a little bit and allow a season to qualify, but then they'd have to get rid of the free entrance because they're charging for people for those services, as they should.
Do you want me to jump in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is that attendance based on just out of county?
Yes, this is out-of-county attendance, right?
I think the commission was getting rid of all the cultural grants, but we realized when we bring in the boat shows and the surfing Santas and those types of things where the whole community has an ability to come and enjoy it, and there's a lot of out of areas. So I think the wisdom of the commission, whether you think so or not, but again, everybody's a little bit different. Again, it's going to have to go back to them, but the thought was to help with that marketing outside of Brevard County because it's heads and beds. So if we're working on that, but I love what he did with the smaller ones, that if they're not bringing in that many people, then he will market for them. And a lot of that will be in Brevard County and some outside of the county too. So there'll be the marketing committee through the TDC and whatever board's putting that together of how to do that. My guess, Mr. Kranis, if we do that, you're going to need some more funds to do some more of that type of marketing.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, one of the things, and when we get to the next section, we'll talk about the total amount. But if we could get a little bit of extra funding from the cultural fund to promote those events, then we could put more dollars into that. So that could be an option there.
Because I believe on the commission level, there's going to be a lot of discussion soon about some changes in the marketing and how we do it, as far as other entities getting involved more with some more input. So on this, I think it fixed that hole that we left with these large events that are definitely bringing in people, that they're not totally cut out of those types of funding, and it's a reimbursement for the marketing, or Mr. Kranis will be able to market, like I think the symphony orchestra then would be able to be marketed by the TDC to help with that. So it's all a reimbursement of marketing, or in the sports as far as helping with the facilities.
But if I'm understanding that unless the symphony is free, it won't qualify here under this. Events received must have free entrance for attendees.
I think sometimes they do some free events.
Okay.
If-
To do the fifth grade concert It's the only one that's free to the public
Yeah, I
with
think,
sponsorship. So, I think the commission was clear on the cultural committee grants receiving direct funding. I wonder, I would be in favor of allowing the cultural organizations, this is very watered down, the TDC taking on the marketing for them and doing it as ancillary marketing within the overall TDC budget. So if we've taken direct grants from those entities that applied, that were well scored and would have gotten them, that's off the table. Why not? I would still be in favor of allowing those to receive the benefit of TDC marketing, even though they had paid admission.
Yeah.
That's a lot less than what they were getting 2 months ago and that they were counting on, but it's still, they're still getting the support of the tourism community because it is, cultural enrichment both for residents and visitors to Brevard County.
We could give that as a recommendation going up as one of the recommendations. Would you like that, sir?
I would make a motion to allow cultural organizations that do take paid attendance, but that bring in larger numbers of out-of-town visitors to be candidates for TDC marketing.
I'll second that.
What's the number on the out-of-town visitors that you want as a threshold, a minimum?
that's,
It would be great to see that chart for the cultural grants committee members that received grants previously to understand what kind of range of attendance they were. Do you recall? From
Sure,
that
yeah, I
meeting?
have it. There were, if you remember, in that batch, there were 25, and about a third of them were under, would have been under the 3,000. So you're-
Two-thirds above?
about two-thirds would be above the 3,000. So if you took the 3,000 number, that would pretty much cover a majority of them.
I think you're going to have to show heads and beds. I don't know about the other commissioners, but that's what's going to greatly reflect how I support this. We're trying to get out of getting down on the smaller things, and they're all good things, but trying to really precisely target this money on bringing more tourism into the area. And it just got to get strongerly defined on how we move forward without these little bitty projects that we're doing, so we can get more money into the capital projects and more money into those things that are going to bring more people into the area. Therefore, these smaller things that start out will be able to have more people participating, and that's just this commissioner's thought. So
I just want to, I think those numbers, though, I think you have to be careful. I'm not sure there's any arts facility in the county who can hold 3,000 people at once. So that's often for a season. That's why I was talking about seasons. So really, for an arts facility, there isn't, I don't know if there's any that holds 3,000 or more for a single event. That's why I concur with what you said, Tom, and I'm wondering, Commissioner, whether you want to look at the season. So if the Titusville Theater brought in 10,000 people over the season, showed room nights, did all those things, it would qualify for marketing assistance.
I think it would through Mr. Kranis's, but he would put the marketing out there for them.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But 3,000, I don't think they can hold in a single performance, and right
No,
now it's a single
I like
performance.
the aggregate's good for me, too.
Okay, that's what I was pushing at.
But-
Okay. Well, so we'll add the aggregate,
Yep.
and then we'll add paid attendance is okay. Okay. All right. And then anything else on that page as far as the minimum, then we'll leave the 3 to 10,000 and the 10,001 plus?
I have a question on that page. We're still on page 42, right?
Yes, 41, yes.
Oh, 41, okay, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, then never mind, I'll wait till 42.
Okay. All right. And then.
We're on 42.
Okay, so now we're on 42. So yeah, this is, so a couple of things on 42. There's, at the top, there's the total amount that we want to allocate. And the source of the funds, just as a reminder, there's a couple of sources of funds now that we have. We have funds that are remaining in the cultural fund that are available to be moved into marketing. And then we also have the sports event budget that sits within the marketing budget today. This For this fiscal year, it's 138,000 and change, and then next year it'll be 240,000. So in fiscal 24, 25, it'll be 240. So we could do 400. The suggestion had come to us 400, 500, or 600. We should be able to cover that between those two sources. So, and then the conversation that we had a second ago about maybe allocating some of the funds for the smaller events between 3,000 and 10,000 to promote them and drive traffic to the event listings on our website. We could carve some of that money, whether it's 400, 500, or 600. We could carve some of that out for that. So I guess I'm just asking the TDC, what is the preference as far as the maximum? And then if you look down in the chart kind of breaks out the specific funding that would go for those specific events that would actually get reimbursement or get the marketing dollars. We just put 20, 25, and 30, but that's a suggested, so that could change as well.
Ms. Young, did you want to start?
Well, my comment wasn't on that, but since I'm commenting anyway, the amounts with the minimum 3,000 out of county and up to 10,000, I think that's wonderful. These are very healthy grants. I would expect them to be bringing in more people. So events like the Renaissance Festival, which is held outside, they can do that. The art fair, they can do that. The regular fair, the Space Coast Daily Fair, they could do that in one event easily. So they would qualify for something like this. That's great. But my question is in the paragraph down, reimbursable grant. And you've got an and or in here. Applicants will be awarded funding via the funding award table above the TDO will do their out-of-county marketing for them. And then in the gray, you have if grantees are doing the marketing. How do you choose? Who gets to choose if the TDO is going to do the marketing for, and then that amount, that grant you would just spend $20,000 or whatever
Right.
the amount is for them.
Right.
And then my question on that is, when we use the service like from Anbar, just for an example, so that's a whole marketing program. And so the TDO has been paying for that whole process where they work up the advertising and the graphics and all that thing. So the applicant here who receives this fund also gets a benefit of that whole, they're not just paying for the airtime or for the digital time, they're
Yeah,
paying for
if
that
it's
entire.
so the idea would be if it's an event where, let's say it's the boat races, and they win a $30,000 award, we would work with our agency, we work with them, and a lot of times they have their own advertising, and that's fine, but if they want us to help them, we could help them, and we could actually run the ads for them.
Okay, so they're getting more than just 30,000 or 20,000. They're actually getting the benefit of having a whole marketing campaign worked up for them, which is an added bonus right there. And then actually paying the 30,000 hard costs.
Right.
Thank you. That was my question.
Good question. Do these numbers reflect, if we take a $25 million budget, what was historically, prior to the change we're considering today, going into sports grants and cultural grants? Just rough numbers.
Yeah, start with sports, it's the easy one. We had, over the last 4 or 5 years, allocated about 200 to 220,000 for those grants, and that usually wasn't sufficient for 2 cycles of sports events getting grants. We had bumped it up a little bit for this fiscal to 240, so that's where the 240 came from. And then the cultural grants in the past have gotten, I'm looking at Andrea, somewhere between the 300,000 and 400,000 range, but this last year it was 530,000. That was suggested by the subcommittee, but we didn't, obviously it never actually went anywhere. So we've never really awarded any more than 400,000, I think was the max.
And then was there a separate bucket for the large events?
Yeah, there was, and that was 225,000 this fiscal year was what had been in there,
So-
which would have been 3 large events at the full 75,000, but obviously that didn't happen either.
Just so hypothetically, well, not hypothetically, based on those numbers, we had 820 $225,000, give or take, allocated between sports, cultural, and large events. To give us a measuring post against picking
Right.
one of these three numbers.
Right.
They threw a chunk of that, though, at the lifeguards, too, so we have to deal with what's left over.
Yeah, some of
after.
the, so about somewhere between 700,000 and 900,000 of the cultural funds got shifted to.
Yeah, no, I
to
was
that-
more
to that
asking
piece,
on
so, yeah.
on an annually recurring
Ongoing.
basis.
Yeah.
Historically, we were allocating around, call it 500 to 700 to those three pots.
Yeah, that sounds right.
You guys might have to adjust this in the future years, too, as you start to get a handle of the new change.
Just a point of clarification, this is replacing the cultural grants, the sports grants, and the major events grants?
Right.
All three of them?
All
So-
three.
So all three of those buckets, the major grants, which were 3 grants of 75,000.
Yeah, which, by the way, that just, that never
Never
got
happened.
awarded, but yeah.
Yeah, so that major grants, the 75,000, excuse me, that one, the cultural grants and the sports grants. Those, all three will be thrown into one grant program. Just want to
Correct.
clarify, make sure I
Right.
understand correctly.
And
But
then
the,
this board can make
the
decisions.
225 is not in here from the budget that you're showing. It doesn't show anything about the major events grants under 6.0 available funds.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't address that in here because this would just be a shift from, we'd take those cultural funds and roll them into the marketing fund, so.
Well, I think 500 sounds like a nice round number in the middle, if you're looking for a suggestion.
I am, thank you.
Anybody else?
Sounds like a good place to build on.
So that would be the overall grant program for all three of those. Just
That's
wanna
right.
make sure I'm crystal
Yep.
clear, yeah. Okay.
And then I did have another choice in here. It should be relatively easy, whether we wanted to do this annually or twice a year. We don't really have a preference, honestly. It's whatever the TDC would like to do. If they want to see this come twice a year, we can do it twice a year, we can do it once.
Twice? Once?
It's more meetings. I think you should make that call.
I might get booted off here soon, so it's going to greatly reflect you guys more than me. So,
Keith and I are going to die up here some years from now.
you want to try out one and see if you need to do two?
You think, so, try to make an informed decision. These organizations generally know a year out what they're planning to do.
Yeah,
So
where the
1
two
year,
came
so-
from was, I think the sports had 2 cycles, but frankly, if you're a sports event planner and you don't know a year and out that you're having an event, you're probably not really buttoned up. So, yeah, I would think most of them would know a year out.
Yeah, and I do recall that we do make exceptions to our policies, so even if we start with one, we break our own rules.
Yeah, if there was a couple of events that came later in a cycle, we could bring it to the TDC for review. Okay.
Okay,
And then the level of funding, so it was 10,001 to 20,000, 20,000 to 30,000, and 30,000 plus, 20, 25, and 30. We can adjust that or leave it.
I'm good.
Good.
We can always change it, so I'm good
Yeah.
with starting with this.
Okay. And then we already talked about it being either reimbursable or having our office do the marketing for them, so we can leave that as is, and then it could be determined as we get, those applications in. If they have a good marketing plan, then they can do it themselves and we'll reimburse, otherwise we could help them with it. So, Madam Chair, that was really all the decision points. So I'll be looking for the TDC to make a motion and vote.
Okay, can I have a motion to move that forward with the recommended tweaks?
so moved.
Motion by Mr. Hermanson, second by Mayor Medina. All in
Second.
favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Oh, I had one card on that. I am so sorry. Mr. Aaron Collins, are you here?
I am. You all addressed everything.
You're hiding right
already.
behind there. Okay. I didn't see you either, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Good to see you all. Thank you very much. My name is Aaron Collins, conductor of the Space Coast Symphony. I'm also on the Tourist Development Subcommittee, and you've already addressed everything here today that I was going to bring up and discuss, so I have nothing to say except great to see you all, and thank you very much for all the work you do in our community. So appreciate you all.
Thank you for all you do, sir. Okay, Mr. Kranis, we are moving.
Okay, so now, based on that and those actions taken, Madam Chair, we brought the TDC's Operating Procedures Manual, and this is basically the two items in here are striking the Sports and the Cultural Committee from these as standing committees. Obviously, if something changes in the future, we can always bring them back, but this just allows us to move forward without having to have those meetings where there's really nothing much for those committees to do. So I'm just looking for the TDC to make a motion and support of the changes that are highlighted, and they're in pages 67 and page 69 and page 70 are where the changes are.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by
Sorry.
Ms. Young and a second by Mr. Medina. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously, I believe.
Yeah.
Can I, okay, if I ask a question?
Oh, absolutely.
So eliminating these committees, Peter, are you in a position to track moving forward? Or I would request that we track moving forward if this has an impact in tourism. I mean, we used to invest heavily on the cultural side and on the sports side, and now it's just moving to a marketing piece.
Right.
So is there some way for us to track, for example, the sports events? So if we're sitting here in 3 years and we've watched our sports events fall off the table, and we think it's due, we can bring it back, because that's just my one concern. We have stories in the, years ago, Colorado cut its Visit Colorado budget, got rid of it, and they lost 20% of their tourism. So I am concerned that we need to track changes and see if this doesn't if sporting events fall off here.
Mr. Kranis,
anecdotally.
will this affect any of those sporting grants?
I think most of the sporting events that, we think have a reasonable number of room nights will fall under this grant, so I think they'll be fine.
Okay.
We set the minimum at 500 room nights. Frankly, if it's something smaller than 500 room nights, it's not even really, I don't believe, worth our chasing those. I think I'd rather spend staff time. We have a person that runs our sports commission, have them go after these bigger events, and they would fall under this grant program. So I think it might help, actually. But yeah, we certainly will track room nights. Last year, I think we generated about 18,000 room nights with the sports grant program. So we can surely see if we're doing better, or at least if we're getting more bigger events, which I think this would help with. So, yeah,
That's a
good suggestion.
Good question, because I wasn't even thinking it could possibly cause harm. I thought it just, so thanks for asking that. Okay. All right, we're ready to move into committee reports.
I
don't know if you want to go and then I'll go, or,
I just, marketing met last week.
Yep.
These days fly along.
Yeah.
And we took a look at some changes that are going to be coming down the road for the marketing plan, and we gave, I think, was valuable input, and I'll let Peter comment on that.
Yeah, so we, Madam Chair, we shared, and I think you've seen some of this, because we've shared the marketing plan with the commissioner, all the commissioners, and we had some new creative that we're proposing. We also took a stab at trying to pay off what the board had asked us to do with promoting lifeguarded beaches. And we got some really, I think, good feedback from the marketing committee on that. So I think we're going to be doing some more work, and we'll be bringing it back through here. But, I think it was just good. It was a good open discussion session. No decisions were made, and nothing's really changing at this point, so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We are moving into the next committee, correct? Okay.
That's me. So Capital Facilities Committee met on September 13th. We had 3 applications to review. First one was the U.S. Law Enforcement Foundation in Titusville, Igniting the Flame. And we had come up with a recommendation of a $1.2 million award for the requested $5 million. $300,000 of that to be used for design and engineering, and 75% of that for construction. And also that the United States Law Enforcement Foundation could come back future years for more grant money.
So, yeah, Madam Chair, just an observation, there was a lot of discussion about, helping them get to that ask, and, I think the committee was just trying to start the process and get them there, but allow the door to stay open for them to request more in future years. Obviously, there could be some other thought processes around that, so.
Yeah, I'm going to jump out with a couple ideas, and you guys definitely speak to it. We have like 8 million sitting in the capital fund right now.
We have 8 million, plus we just got informed from the city of Palm Bay that
They're giving back.
they're not
the-
moving forward with the Palm Bay campground that they were awarded a number of years ago. That was, I think there's 1.65 million that's going to be coming back into the pot, so it's going to be north of 9.5 million that we'll have available.
I do have 2 cards on this, but a thought I want to throw out, just from having a little bit of longevity on the commission. About 6 or 7 years ago, we came with a lot of marketing plans back then, and we did a lot of equity with the districts, and we divided up funds, and that's when Palm Bay got that money for the campground. And District 1 got $7 million for an event center. We worked real hard on it. Delaware North couldn't pull it out, so we never received those funds either. And they were good plans. So my request today is to try to get a little bit more equity as far as capital into more of the districts. 1, 3, and 5 are very low on capital funds. And so I'm going to request today, with y'all's permission, with what you want to do as well, I'd like to just go ahead and give Palm Bay the full amount. And you guys did a great job reviewing this too, sir. You did a wonderful job. I just wasn't allowed to tell you all the history on it. And up in District 1, this Police Hall of Fame, and I'm going to have you come up, sir, in a second and speak. But it's a big project. They get a lot of people there for a lot of events that they're having. So I know they asked for $5 million, and you award it probably more than I would have first year. I'm going to ask if we can go ahead and award them the $1 million a year as they finish the progress. I think that would help them greatly with funding, with some things. They had an opportunity for a grant from Edward Burm, but the sheriff had to have all the funds, and the county can only get 1 set of funds on that. So there's some things they haven't been able to do because the sheriff's department's in such needs of funds as well. So that's going to be my request, that we're able to go ahead and grant $1 million a year for 5 years. And if the project quits, we don't do it, of course. But there's a lot of funds in the capital, and there's going to be more funds catching up as well. And I think that'll help as far as District 1 getting a little bit more of that equity amount. They're trying so hard to create more events. We've got the Space Center, which is doing so wonderful, the Visitor Center. But I would really like to eventually down the road get as much funds coming in as Cocoa Beach has coming in with tourism development. So-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I hear you saying that. We should probably ask Peter to get us a tally on capital expenditures, because other than the zoo at 15 million, I can't recall any other dollar amounts that Cocoa Beach has
I
received.
think we gave the aquarium 10 million, correct?
15.
15 million.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
that's-
think Lori
that's-
Wilson Park, too, we gave a lot of
Lori
funds to.
Wilson Park, I would argue, was deferred maintenance that should have been paid by Parks and Rec in the county that they
We gave it through the
foisted
TDC,
onto.
though. But at
Yes.
that time, we did
Yeah. So
an
that was-
equity analysis through the districts, and Palm Bay's given back almost more than half of theirs.
Yeah, we've
So,
tried
Madam
very
Chair-
hard to give Palm Bay money.
Right.
So, Madam
So-
Chair, the first thing I'd like to have is our county attorney weigh in on whether I can vote. I did ask a question if I had to abstain on this particular issue, but I'd like for his opinion to be read on the record.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Mayor Medina. So we, at the CAO, conducted research based on a question about whether there was a conflict of interest, and we found there is no voting conflict, and Mayor Medina would be allowed to vote. He does not need to abstain.
Thank you. And I know that we may be getting ahead of ourselves because I believe we
I'm
have
gonna
some
do cards, yeah.
presentations. But I'll reserve my comments till after the presentations, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You guys ready to hear from the two cards we have? Okay. I have I'm going to go ahead and start with the Police Hall of Fame because it's on top, and then I'm going to come down to Palm Bay. Mr. Jeff Strine? Strine.
Afternoon. I'm Jeff Strine. I'm the Chief of Strategy and Advancement for the United States Law Enforcement Foundation. Most of you know us as the American Police Hall of Fame, which is one of our brands, one of our programs. We're passing around our case statement. We are a nonprofit, as you probably know. This is our case for support for a $55 million project. It's a very credible project. Our organization has been around for 60 years. We moved up from Miami 25 years ago to take advantage of the tourism that was happening up here. And we're just really excited at this point in our history to really be able to plug into that. And I'd just like to say that while we are certainly marketing to traditional tourism, we also have a specific cohort in the millions, 4 million of existing officers and families, direct families. We've got retired officers around the nation, and a lot of the programming that is being envisioned in this project is pointed to them. So more education, more symposium-type events, law enforcement specific fitness events, et cetera. So I just encourage everyone to really take a look at this because it's not brand new. We're just building on existing history. And we have the capacity to do this. We've acquired the land adjacent to us. And in addition, one of the new buildings will be a conference center, convention center. So we've got an allocated or dedicated, restricted commitment from NBEDS for that specific facility for $500,000. Delaware North has been helpful in terms of directing us to some third parties that have done some of our feasibility work and on that facility as well as on the numbers of guests that we built into our pro forma. So we're looking at an impact of 153,000 hotel nights when this is firmed up per year. And that we think, and we've been told, is a relatively low number. We think the pro forma is pretty conservative, $35 million to indirect spending into the local economy. So those numbers are in here. But we appreciate your help at whatever level. $5 million would help us a lot to get the ball rolling. We've raised about $2.5 million at this point.
What's the total cost of the project when we're all complete?
It's $55 million at the moment.
55 million?
Yeah. And we've been told, by Rush Construction that those are workable numbers still.
Okay, and I've been to a few of the police events where we were able to honor families of fallen officers, and there's like 2,000 people that show up from all over the country. So I know the hotel rooms just on the facility you have outside, it's pretty substantial.
Just for that weekend,
Yeah.
it's 600 hotel nights.
Yeah, so as you grow with this, I can imagine it's going to bring in a lot of families from all over the nation.
That's our goal.
Because people have a big heart for our first responders, and so this is a very wonderful project to honor all those people that give so much to our nation. And as far as law enforcement and police and fire, I love this project. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorites. Even if it was in a different district, I'd still highly support it. So, thank you, sir.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, did anybody want to ask any questions, or? Okay,
I'm good.
I'm going to call up Ms. Suzanne Sherman.
Good afternoon, Suzanne Sherman, City Manager for the City of Palm Bay. Thank you for the opportunity to briefly address you. I know you're familiar with the project, but just in brief, Sacrifice Park is a memorial that was built by really a contingent of volunteers many decades ago after one of the first mass shooting events in the state of Florida occurred in the city of Palm Bay. Since that time and the hand building of that memorial, which shows today, if you look at it, that it was built by hand by volunteers with love. The volunteers did what they could at the time, but it's time to bring that memorial into a different age, a modern age. And since that time, we have honored countywide public safety folks that have lost their lives in line of duty. So they are represented on that memorial today from multiple cities, from the county, not just the city of Palm Bay. And so we have always made that a tradition of honoring others. The memorial itself is on land that is both city-owned and county-owned. And we have an agreement with Brevard County to continue to build and develop this particular memorial. What has changed in our world is that it's no longer something that we consider to be just a memorial just for local government purposes, but we have found that it actually is something can be an attractant for events that honor law enforcement, fire, rescue folks, even telecommunicators who have lost their lives in the line of duty, because we consider all of those to be worthy of representation on the memorial. So what we have done is we have come up with a plan, and we have been fundraising for this plan for a couple of years. And our plan is to basically create a meaningful, reflective, unique tourism destination and to host events such as 9/11 Patriot Day events, which we already have an existing event that we would host at this location. We have hosted Tour de Force, Law Enforcement United. There are canine activities and other types of like traveling memorial activity type of events that we've already hosted in Palm Bay in recent years. So we would expand upon that, and it actually is coupled well with a city gun range that's just down the street. It's a very large facility. We've received state appropriations for that gun range, and I mention it because what we're doing is we're expanding that, and we have already been hosting significant regional, state, and even out-of-state law enforcement personnel to come to our gun range for events and activities. We're building an entire canine training center there, and we're expanding the uses of that facility. So we're going to have even more people coming in, and our goal is to kind of combine that, what the gun range does and how it draws people in anyway from a law enforcement background, to combine that with events that we would host at the Sacrifice Park Memorial. So in closing, I appreciate the comment about giving us potentially our full ask. Cost escalations have meant that, I apologize, cost escalations have meant that we have seen our budget grow quite a bit, so we probably need closer to $500,000, so $250,000 would get us there. We were able to get $150,000 in state appropriations this year, plus over $100,000 in Mayor's Ball fundraising. So we're about halfway there. That would get us to our goal, and we would make it a unique and destination we can all be proud of. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, Madam Sherman, I have a question. So is the design already completed? on
Yes,
most
we
of-
have the design completed. We have our final steps, which are currently underway, is our engineering for the electrical, because it will be a destination you can have events in the evening, for example. So we're having the lighting plans drawn up. And we already have the site plan process underway on our side. So we are ready to go, and we expect to actually, if we get all the funding put together, we'll be building it next year.
And so let me ask you another question, ma'am, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. So you mentioned the gun range and the improvements that the city's making for the gun range, and those improvements are going to enhance other law enforcement agencies throughout our nation to come visit Palm Bay.
Yes, sir.
Can you touch a little bit on that, the conferences and the registration of all of
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Right now, we have, as many law enforcement agencies do around the county, we send our folks other places oftentimes for training and competitions, things like that. Like there's big canine competitions that happen in Orlando, SWAT competitions, things like that. Our gun range is large enough that we can begin to be a regional host for events like that, which is part of our goal. And part of the reason we started down that path was because it will ultimately, in the long term, save us money, because we don't have to send everybody out to training. We can host them, and get the larger organizations that present those types of activities to put them on in Palm Bay. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
Good project.
Thank you.
Comments?
Ma'am, I'll take the opportunity to share a few comments that I have. As most of you know, I've been passionate about Sacrifice Park. I've been spearheading, which is why I wanted to get the county attorney to weigh in on whether I had to abstain from this vote. But this project is truly would enhance the quality of life, not only of the members, the family members of the fallen within. And in reality, it was probably one of the very first mass shootings that we had in the history of this nation, right here in Brevard County. And we honor those lives. This will build a monument. It'll be a tribute to those that have fallen, and it's worthy of their sacrifice. So this full ask that I'm requesting for it to be the full $250,000 that the city applied for would bring us to a point that would enhance the project, complete the project. And as you heard, I truly believe that there are going to be more heads in beds because of it. Perhaps the committee, which you did an outstanding job, sir. One of the comments that I heard from the committee was, this project is ready to move forward. They've raised the funds. It's about turnkey. And so for that, I truly appreciate your hard work. I still stand by trying to get the $250,000, and like you eloquently put it, Peter, the city did do the prudent thing and returned the $1.7 million because the complexities of that campground, it changed dramatically. So it wasn't worth us investing when you had a private or a private enterprise building an RV park right across the street from what we anticipated. And so the prudent thing to do was to return the money. With that being said, I would support the $1 million per year for 5 years. Because let me share with you the experience that I had with the opportunity of the RV park in the city of Palm Bay. Things do change. However, if the Police Hall of Fame Foundation had the opportunity that they have those $5 million, those $1 million a year for the next 5 years, they could move forward with future planning, future investors that are counting on that money. So I would wholeheartedly support that recommendation, Madam Chair, and I'll end my comments with that.
Thank you, sir. I would as well, and if you guys want to weigh in, and I just think it's a great investment, so.
I just have a point of clarification, support what you're saying. I believe traditionally, the funds show up when the institution breaks ground, right? That has been the capital one. So just to clarify,
How would we distribute the funds, or would there be
So
thresholds?
the grants are based on reimbursement. So what we could do, and just like we've planned out with the aquarium, the aquarium, 15 million is allocated over 10 years, so it's 1.5 million for 10 years, once they break ground. So once the project breaks ground, then they'll start seeking reimbursement because construction will begin, and then they can continue to seek those reimbursements every year for 10 years. You could do something similar with the Police Hall of Fame, where you would just designate once that project breaks ground, then they can begin to seek reimbursement, and it'll be $1 million a year for 5 years from that point on.
Would that work? Yeah. By the way, Keith, down the road, if you need an extension on the aquarium, you know I'm in. So
what's that?
if you need an extension on the aquarium,
Oh, thank
know I'm in.
you. We appreciate.
Told you that publicly,
Yes,
yeah.
we plan to meet our commitment with the county commission.
Well, I know you're
which
going to
is-
get it, so, yeah.
But I appreciate that.
Great
I love,
project.
love real-time horse trading. Just came
I
back
said
from
at the commission
Lexington.
level already.
Oh,
so-
okay, it's on the record, great.
Right, well, that's your district.
I don't look at it by
You
district,
sold
but
it
I'm not
pretty
elected.
hard to get it there,
I'm not
so got
elected
my
official.
attention when you wanted it, so,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. All right, can I have a motion then? Mr. Sorter, you good with this?
Yes, so the motion would be for the U.S. law enforcement, $1 million for 5 years. And for the city of Palm Bay, the full $250,000, and Valiant Air Command, the full $471,000?
I'm good with the Valiant Air at the other amount because they got a little bit of extra last time. So if those are, I didn't hear anything more from them, and I think what your recommendation for them is probably pretty good.
I'll second that.
So we would keep the Valiant Air Command at 349,213? Okay.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Could we get a clarification on the
Certainly.
motion with respect to the fact that it's allocated and distributed on reimbursement when the project breaks ground?
Are you good with that, with an amendment to your motion, sir?
I think that's the rule, isn't it? So, yes.
Okay, second holds. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Kranis?
Sorry, Madam Chair. So Beach Committee, they had, Matt is obviously absent, but there was one meeting scheduled, and we canceled it. They were really, at this point, until we really get into next year's budget, not much to report. I'll have Mike McGarry, he was out this month, but he'll be back next month to share what the plans are for all the beach projects. We've got quite a bit going on with the Army Corps in the Mid-Reach and South Reach, and then they'll be back putting sand on the South Beaches in November as well. So we've got probably $70 to $80 million worth of projects coming up here in the next year. We don't yet know, we have not heard yet from the Army Corps what their ask is going to be for the Mid and South Reach project. So I'm hoping by next month Mike will have that. Originally they were asking for $8 million, but we think they may have been able to get some additional funding from FEMA. So we're just waiting to hear that number and what it is. Hopefully, if it's less than the $8 million, that'll be good news, and then we can talk about what we want to do going forward with reserves and IRL grant programs and things like that. But till we know all the numbers, we really can't do much.
Thank you.
And then the other two committees, obviously, at least at this time, are disbanded. So there were no future meetings planned at this point anyhow.
We have Ms. Young here, though. You did an incredibly good job on that board forever, and you're such a good person. I would want you on any board I serve on ever, so. Oh, we have no more public comment. We're all the way at board reports. Mayor Medina.
So I just want to thank this council for supporting Sacrifice Park. We're going to build a tribute that honors the sacrifice, and I'm really excited about that, that we can actually start constructing this monument, the families, and the vision has always been to have the family members and the grandchildren of the surviving families to come and see that monument and reflect on the sacrifices that their loved ones made. And this is a county-wide effort. This is each and every law enforcement official that has fallen, and unfortunately, we will have others that may fall. And when that occurs, they will also be enshrined in this memorial. So thank you, council members. I truly appreciate it. And if the Board of County Commissioners watching, I enlist your support. Thank you,
sir.
ma'am.
Mr., him's not here today. I have, Tawny's not here, Chrissy's not here. Mr. Hermanson.
No report, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sword.
Nothing else to report?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Winstead.
Just to let your constituents know, through Saturday, the end of September, kids are free at the zoo, so you have one more, which looked like a nice day, which we do for the entire month of September. And then come the next weekend, Boo at the Zoo starts at the zoo. So hopefully see you one or the other.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Young.
I just want to say thank you. Serving on the Cultural Committee was certainly my honor to do that. It was a wonderful group of people, all the people that were ever appointed to that committee. I appreciated every single one of them, the TDCs, or TDO, I'm sorry, for all of their support for doing that. It was fun every year when all the grants came in. It was the most fun part of the year was for those grants. So I'm very happy to still be sitting here. Hope I'm still sitting here. And if another group comes up, please keep me in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kranis.
No report, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's exciting, man. Yeah, very exciting.
Recording stopped. The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.